Hi, welcome back. In this video tutorial, we'll go over ABC Ranch's expenses. It's going to be a somewhat lengthy process. I do have a fully populated worksheet to refer to so as to not do line by line data entry, but I want to impress upon you a bit of the work that's involved in entering all your expenses and allocating them across your proper enterprises. We've already done a little bit of this in the unpaid labor video where you saw that the ranch's $40,000 in unpaid labor value was allocated across their 5 enterprises. So if you have downloaded the cost of production details for ABC Ranch from our website, you'll see that there's a detailed table listing a number of expenses, the total dollar amount, and then allocations that add up to 100% for each expense line. You do not have to allocate each expense to every single enterprise. Obviously, something like salt and mineral and vet and med is a livestock related expense. And you don't necessarily even have to apply those to all of the livestock enterprises. Perhaps you don't give any salt and mineral to your backgrounders, in which case this would be 0. It's up to you to fairly allocate these expenses to the enterprises where they are accrued. Something like fuel is where we've discussed earlier how it's typically an expense. Fuel gets used by every single enterprise on your operation, so you have to come up with a fair way of breaking it out across your enterprises. Same with things like tractor repairs. However, if you look at this line, baler repairs, $1,100 of baler repairs for ABC Ranch, you'll see that it's 100% allocated to the hay enterprise because that's where the only place that the baler gets used. Yes, the hay is fed back to the cows, but the cost of maintaining and perhaps the loan costs associated with the baler accrue 100% to the hay enterprise, because if you didn't make hay on your operation, you'd have no baler repairs, as you would have no need for a baler. Same with fence repairs. If you look across, it's 100% to the pasture enterprise. So you can see that there's been breakouts for all these expenses, and sometimes certain enterprises are left out if it's felt that the expense does not pertain to those enterprises. Property taxes are to the land-based enterprises. And there's quite an exhaustive list here of expenses. So all these expense numbers should come from your accounting records. And generally in your first year of doing cost of production analysis, you'll have to go through working out these percentage allocations. But for every year after that, and that's where you get the most benefit, is year over year calculation of your cost of production for your operation. You don't really have to adjust these much unless you totally do away with backgrounding, and then you're going to have to move these percentage allocations to the other livestock enterprises or rejig these percentages. But generally, if you have the same amounts of cattle and the same amount of land from year to year, you won't find that these percentage allocations change too much, but it's a good idea to review them and make sure that they look accurate. So we'll just go right into the cost of production calculator. And there's an expense tab. So we worked on the unpaid labor one, and you'll see expenses is actually one ahead of it, number 10. And we'll start, step 1 is just entering the livestock related expenses and allocating them across the livestock enterprises. What I mean by that is the salt and mineral, the vet and medicine, breeding fees. Those are expenses that will pertain to livestock and not to land-based enterprises. So you can enter mineral and salt separate or together. In ABC's ranches instance, we have $5,400 of salt and mineral expense. And you'll see that this the allocation cell is colored red right now, just to indicate that it hasn't been fully allocated up to 100%. So 85% to the cow calf, 10% to the replacements, and 5% to the backgrounders. And you can see some calculations that happen at the bottom here. It's pulling in based on what you've entered for production details in the previous worksheets, that your salt and mineral, based on the number of cows you said you had, is about $23 a head. On the replacements you said you put through were $15 a head. $450 on the 60 backgrounders. Okay, the next table is vet and medicine. Vet and medicine expenses for ABC Ranch total $6,000, and they're allocated the same as the salt and mineral, 85, 10, and 5. You'll see that now that equals 100 and the red shading goes away. Livestock supplies, $800, and allocated exactly the same, 85, 10, and 5. So you'll progress through all the tables entering in your data. There's nothing, no breeding fees, semen purchases, or bull rental for ABC Ranch, so you can leave that all blank. And now we'll move into the shared expenses. So enter your shared expenses and allocate each expense to the enterprises responsible for it. So we've talked about that already. It's the same process as what we've done above. Fuel, you can separate it into gas, diesel, oil filters if that helps in determining percentages, or you can lump it all together, which is what's happened here with ABC Ranch. Providing more detail, more breakouts will always make things easier for you. But if you just feel comfortable, you only know it as your total fuel is 10,000, then you're going to have to work that way first off. And the breakouts is 40 to cow-calf if you want to refer to the printout of ABC Ranch, 10 to backgrounder, 30 to hay or forage, and 5 to grazing. Now you can see that's 100% allocated. Just delete these out. And there's all these listings underneath here, just they're pre-populated in order to give you some sense of, it might make sense to break out your baler repairs from all your other machinery expenses or your stock trailer repairs, just because stock trailer repairs will be something that's a livestock expense, and it just might help make some of that allocation process go a little bit smoother for you. In the information for ABC Ranch, they had $2,500 in tractor repairs, $350 in stock trailer repairs, $1,500 in pickup repairs, $1,100 in baler, and $2,800 in small tools. And then the allocation is required for those 40% to cow-calf for the tractor, 15, 10, 30, 5. 75, 10, and 15. Pickup, 40, 15, 10, 30, 5. And you can see this can seem like a bit tedious, but remember I've said, once you do it for your first year participation and figuring out your calculations for cost of production, you typically don't have to go every year and redo this. You'll just be entering in your new year's expenses. And I'm just going to cheat here. Control C, Control V is a quick way to copy paste if the numbers are the same. So you're going to put all your costing, your financial expenses in this spreadsheet, filling it out. Building repairs is 5,000, and then providing the percentage breaks across. Fence repairs, 1,000. You can see already that's already pre-put in at 100% to grazing, just to try and help guide on a few of these. Accounting and legal, 1,500, and so on and so on. Custom work, there's a couple in here, hauling bales, manure cleaning. If you have other ones besides those for custom work, then definitely put that in or type over these lines. Same with this, you can type over any of these. They're just put in there to help guide you as where some of your expenses might typically be for an operation. Paid labor, so do you have paid staff, or perhaps you do a payout to yourself and not just unpaid labor? You actually draw a salary from your ranch, which is more typical of an incorporated operation. Then your taxes, property taxes, typical types of insurance, lease payments, capital interest, and operating interest. You'll see that there's no line item here for principal payments, and that's not included in cost of production analysis. The principal portion of your loans and your bank charges you include here as well. Hauling and trucking, so any cost for hauling cattle to market, hauling cattle to pasture, bringing home hay bales, say bales that you purchased or grain that you purchased, you'd put all that information in here. Marketing commissions and deductions, so you were entering in gross revenues for your cattle sales and you would put in your deductions here. And so for ABC Ranch, there were $4,400 for commissions, deductions, and levies in total. For hauling and trucking, there was $2,000 in trucking and hauling and $2,500 in hauling bales. Okay. You can scroll down. There's no cropping input expenses, but you would enter that information here and indicate which enterprise it belongs to. Net wrap, well, in ABC Ranches, it's twine and total of $1,300, 100% to the forage enterprise. Some ranches have to purchase standing hay or crop share prices. You wouldn't enter that pasture rent charge here if you rented community pasture or neighbor's pasture, because it's already being captured previously under the livestock enterprises when you're adding in that pasture information. So that's how you go about entering all this information in. I'm just going to open up a fully populated one so that you can see everything entered. You can see machinery repairs. This is the one that's downloaded that's fully populated from our website. All the numbers entered and the percentages based on that spreadsheet or the table here was used to populate this expense tables. So once that's all entered, you can safely say you've entered all your expenses for the ranch. And the next step is actually the last step before you can start looking at the summary pages, and that's assets for depreciation. So we'll cover that in the next video. Thanks for joining us.